thought this to be an error. But, although Ammon had the god Milcom, and though Chemosh was a god of Moab, those related nations worshipped many gods. Solomon even wrongly brought the worship of Chemosh into Israel, because of his foreign wives. JG 11. 24. 1K 11. 1, 7, 8, 33. 2K 23. 13. Furthermore, Chemosh may mean subduer, conqueror, according to some scholars. See Gesenius's Hebrew and Chaldee Lexicon, translated by S. Tregels, 1901, p. 401. Jephthah may have called attention to this god as being given credit by the Ammonites for subduing or conquering others and giving them land. Jephthah's vow. Jephthah now saw that a fight with Ammon was God's will. With God's spirit energizing him, he led his army to the fight. Similar to Jacob's action some 600 years previously, Jephthah made a vow, demonstrating his wholehearted desire for Jehovah's direction and attributing any success he would have to Jehovah. JG 11. 30, 31. GE 28. 20-22 Jehovah heard his vow with favor, and the Ammonites were subdued. JG 11. 32, 33. Did Jephthah have in mind human sacrifice when he vowed to present as a burnt offering the first one coming out of his house? Some critics and scholars have condemned Jephthah for his vow, having the view that Jephthah followed the practice of other nations. O textoi acute miritra longo. Jephthah 28 mind that Jehovah's spirit was on Jephthah at the time. This would prevent any rash vow on Jephthah's part. How, then, would the person coming out to meet Jephthah to congratulate him on his victory become Jehovah's and be offered up as a burnt offering? JG 11. 31. Persons could be devoted to Jehovah's exclusive service in connection with the sanctuary. It was a right that parents could exercise. Samuel was one such person, promised to tabernacle service by vow of his mother Hannah before his birth. This vow was approved by her husband Elkanah. As soon as Samuel was weaned, Hannah offered him at the sanctuary. Along with him, Hannah brought an animal sacrifice. Once a one. 11, 22-28. 2. 11 Samson was another child especially devoted to God's service as a Nazirit. JG 13. 2-5, 11-14. Compare the father's authority over a daughter as outlined in New 30. 3-5, 16. When Jephthah brought his daughter to the sanctuary, which was in Shiloh at that time, he undoubtedly accompanied his presentation of her with an animal burnt offering. According to the law, a burnt offering was slaughtered, skinned, and cut up. The intestines and shakes were washed, and its body, head and all, was burned on the altar. The 1. 3-9 The wholeness of such offering represented full, unqualified, wholehearted dedication to Jehovah, and when it accompanied another offering as, for example, when the burnt offering followed the sin offering on the Day of Atonement, it constituted an appeal to Jehovah to accept that other offering. The 16. 3, 5, 6, 11, 15, 24. It was a real sacrifice on the part of both Jephthah and his daughter, for he had no other child. JG 11. 34 Therefore no descendant of his would carry on his name and his inheritance in Israel. Jephthah's daughter was his only hope for this. She wept, not over her death, but over her virginity, for it was the desire of every Israelite man and woman to have children and to keep the family name and inheritance alive. JG 11. 37, 38 Barrenness was a calamity. But Jephthah's daughter never had relations with a man. Had these words applied only to the time prior to the carrying out of the vow, they would have been superfluous, for she is specifically said to have been a virgin. That the statement has reference to the fulfilling of the vow is shown in that it follows the expression, he carried out his vow that he had made toward her. Actually, the record is pointing out that also after the vow was carried out she maintained her virginity. JG 11. 39. Compare enderings in KJ. Die. Ig. NW. Moreover, Jephthah's daughter was visited from year to year by her companions to give her commendation. JG 11. 40 The Hebrew word Tana, used here, also occurs at Judges 5. 11, and in that text is variously rendered recount NW, rehearse KJ, recounted at, repeat RS. The word is defined in a Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon edited by B. Davis, 1957, p. 693 as to repeat, to rehearse. At Judges 11. 40 the King James Version renders the term lament, but the margin reads talk with. As Jephthah's daughter served at the sanctuary, doubtless like other Nethinim given ones devoted to sanctuary service, there was much she could do. These persons served in gathering wood, drawing water, doing repair work, and undoubtedly performing many other tasks as assistants to the priests and Levites there. Jos 9. 21, 23, 27. Es 7. 24. 8. 20. Eni 3. 26. Ephraimites resist Jephthah? The Ephraimites, who considered themselves the dominant tribe of northern Israel including Gilead, proudly refused to acknowledge Jephthah and sought to justify themselves. So they worked up a false charge as an excuse for taking offense against him. A like attitude had been shown by them years before, in Judge Gideon's time. JG 8. 1. They claimed that Jephthah failed to call them to the fight against Ammon, and they threatened to burn Jephthah's house over him. JGO text to acute miritra longo, Job 29 libera, and at Hebrews 11. 32 he is listed among the faithful cloud of witnesses. Hope 12. 1. Jephaneji middle.funner. 1. Father of the Judean spy Caleb and, likely, the father of Kenaz. New 13. 2, 3, 6. 1 ch 4. 15. JG 1. 13 Jephanua was a Kenizite associated with the tribe of Judah. Jos 14. 6, 14. 2. A prominent member of the tribe of Asher. 1 ch 7. 38, 40. Jeraji Ra lunar month. A son of Joktan whose descendants may have settled somewhere in Arabia. GE 10. 26-29. 1 ch 1. 20. See Joktan. Dramil G middle dot Rami middle dot L may God show mercy. God has shown mercy. 1. The firstborn of Judah's grandson Hezron. The royal and messianic lineage passed through Dramil's brother Ram, apparently the same as Ani. An extensive genealogy is included for Dramil's descendants, some of whom inhabited the southern part of Judah. 1 ch 2. 4, 5, 9-15, 25-42. 1 ch 27. 10. Lu 3. 33. 2. Son or descendant of a Merarite Levite named Kish. 1 ch 24. 26, 29. 23. 21. 3. One of the 3 men sent by King Jehoiakim in his 5th year to seize Jeremiah and Baruch. They returned empty-handed, however, for Jehovah kept his faithful servants concealed. J 36. 9, 26. Since Jehoiakim's successor and presumed firstborn Jehoiachin was only about 12 years old during his father's 5th year of rule, other sons of Jehoiakim were likely still younger, too young to be sent on such a mission as Dramil's. 2 Chi 23. 36. 24. 6, 8 Therefore, Dramil's being called the son of the king might mean, not that he was an offspring of the king, but that he was a member of the royal household or an official of royal descent. Of interest is the discovery of a seal impression, said to be from the 7th century BCE that reads, belonging to Dramil the king's son. Israel Exploration Journal, Jerusalem, 1978, Volume 28, p. 53. Dramilites G middle dot Rami middle dot L middle dot ites of belonging to Dramil. The descendants of Judah through Dramil son of Hezron. 1 ch 2. 4, 9, 25-27, 33, 42 The Dramilites live in the southern part of Judah, apparently in the same general region as the Amalekites, Jeshurites, and Gerzites whom David raided while residing among the Philistines as a fugitive from King Saul. When returning from such raids, David would ambiguously report that these raids had been made upon the south of Judah, and upon the south of the Jerahmeelites, and upon the south of the Kenites. Philistine king Achish, therefore, assumed that David had raided Israelites, thus making himself a stench to his countrymen and enhancing his value to Achish. 1 Sir 27. 7-12 In reality, David later shared spoils of war with the older men in the cities of the Jerahmeelites. 1 Sir 30. 26, 29. Joboaheb. Akmiddle.bar. The Hebrew word akmiddle.bar, variously rendered mouse, rat, jerboa, and jumping rodent, is understood by many scholars as possibly embracing all varieties of rats, mice, and related animals such as the jerboa. However, the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon by Kuhler and Baumgartner gives the meaning of the Hebrew term as jerboa. The jerboa is a jumping rodent that somewhat resembles a miniature kangaroo and is still encountered in the arid parts of the Middle East. The desert jerboa jaculus has a body length of from 10 to 15 centimeters 4-6 inches and weighs 50 to 70 grams 1.8-2. 5 Oz. Their ears and eyes are large. The jerboa resembles a miniature kangaroo. Jid 30 The front limbs are short, but the two hind limbs measure about 2/3 of the total head and body length. The tail is the longest part of the animal and terminates in a small brush. This nocturnal animal prefers desert lands, spending the hot day in its underground burrow, but venturing forth during the cooler night to procure food. Although the Arabs inhabiting the Syrian desert used the jerboa for food, it was legally unclean to the Israelites. Law 11. 29 But it seems that apostate Israelites ignored this prohibition of the law. Issa 66. 17. FTN. Jerboas are destructive to grain and other crops. During the time the sacred ark was in the territory of the Philistines, the divinely sent plague of jerboas brought the land to ruin. 1 6. 4, 5, 11, 18. Jediread. The descendant of Judah and father of Dor, or of those who settled the town of Dor. 1 Ch 4. 1, 18. Shroud Beth Joab. Jeremiah My shortened form of Jemath or of Jeremiah. Apostolic Israelite, one of the 7 sons or descendants of Hashum who had taken foreign wives but sent them away. As 10. 25, 33, 44. Jeremiah Jemiddle.E possibly, Jehovah exalts. Or, Jehovah loosens likely from the womb. 1. A Benjamite who joined David when he was at Ziklag. He was among David's mighty men. 1 Ch 12. 1-4. 2. One of the sons of Gad who gathered to David at the place difficult to approach in the wilderness when David was a refugee from Saul. He was the 5th among these valiant, mighty men, whose faces were the faces of lions, and they were like the gazelles upon the mountains for speed. Of these Gadite heads of David's army, it is said, the least one was equal to 100, and the greatest to 1,000. They crossed the Jordan in the first month when it was overflowing all its banks, and they then chased away all those of the lower plains, to the east and to the west. 1 Ch 12. 8-15. 3. The 10th one of the Gadite heads in David's army, as described in No. 2. 1 Ch 12. 13, 14. 4. One of the heads of paternal houses in the section of the tribe of Manasseh of the Jordan in the days of the kings. The Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh of the Jordan among them being this Jeremiah's descendants began to act unfaithfully toward the God of their forefathers, and went having immoral intercourse with the gods of the peoples of the land, whom God had annihilated from before them. Consequently the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul the king of Assyria, even the spirit of Tilgath-Pilneser the king of Assyria, so that in the days of Pekah, king of Israel, he took into exile those of the Reubenites, and of the Gadites, and of the half-tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Hala and Hebron Hara in the river Gozan. 1 Ch 5. 23-26. 2 Chi 15. 29. 5. A man of the town of Libnah, a priestly city. He was the father of King Josiah's wife Hamutal, who was the mother of kings Jehoahaz and Zedekiah Matania. 2 Kai 23. 30, 31. 24. 18. Jah 52. 1. Jos 21. 13. 1 Ch 6. 57. 6. A prophet, the son of Hilkiah, a priest of Anathoth, a city of the priests located in Benjamin's territory less than 5 kilometers 3 mi of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Jah 1. 1. Jos 21. 13, 17, 18 Jeremiah's father, Hilkiah, was not the high priest of that name, who was of the line of Eleazar. Jeremiah's father was very likely of the line of Ithamar and possibly descended from Abitha, the priest whom King Solomon dismissed from priestly service. 1 Kai 2. 26, 27. Commissioned as prophet. Jeremiah was called to be a prophet when a young man, in 647 BCE in the 13th year of the reign of King Josiah of Judah 659-629 BCE. Jehovah told him, "Before I was forming you in the belly I knew you, and before you proceeded to come forth from the womb I sanctified you. Prophet to the nations I made you." Jah 1. 2-5 He was therefore one of the few men for whose birth Jehovah assumed responsibility. O textoi acute miritra longo. Jeremiah 31 earthly ministry took him to be Jeremiah returned to life. Mount 16. 13, 14. Writings. Jeremiah was a researcher and a historian as well as a prophet. He wrote the book bearing his name and is also generally credited with writing the books of 1st and 2nd Kings, covering the history of both kingdoms Judah and Israel from the point where the books of Samuel left off, that is, in the latter part of David's reign over all Israel down to the end of both kingdoms. His chronology of the period of the kings, using the method of comparison or collation of the reigns of Israel's and Judah's kings, helps us to establish the dates of certain events with accuracy. After the fall of Jerusalem, Jeremiah wrote the Book of Lamentations. Strong denunciatory message. Jeremiah was no chronic complainer. Rather, he showed himself to be loving, considerate, and sympathetic. He exercised fine control and marvelous endurance and was moved to great sadness by the conduct of his people and the judgments they suffered. Jah 8. 21. Actually, it was Jehovah who made the complaint against Judah, and justifiably so, and Jeremiah was under obligation to declare it unremittingly, which he did. Also, it must be borne in mind that Israel was God's nation, bound to him by covenant and under his law, which they were grossly violating. As basis and solid ground for Jeremiah's denunciations, Jehovah repeatedly pointed to the law, calling attention to the responsibility of the princes in the people and recounting wherein they had broken the law. Time and again Jehovah called attention to the things he, through his prophet Moses, had warned them would come upon them if they refused to listen to his words and broke his covenant. 26. 28. Courage, endurance, love. Jeremiah's courage and endurance were matched by his love for his people. He had scathing denunciations and fearful judgments to proclaim, especially to the priests, prophets, and rulers and to those who took the popular course and had developed an enduring unfaithfulness. Jah 8. 5, 6 Yet he appreciated that his commission was also to build and to plant. Jah 1. 10 He wept over the calamity that was to come to Jerusalem. Jah 8. 21, 22. 9. 1 The Book of Lamentations is in evidence of his love and concern for Jehovah's name and people. In spite of cowardly, vacillating King Zedekiah's treacherousness toward him, Jeremiah pleaded with him to obey the voice of Jehovah and continue living. Jah 38. 4, 5, 19-23 Furthermore, Jeremiah had no self-righteous attitude, but included himself when acknowledging the wickedness of the nation. Jah 14. 20, 21 After his release by Nebuzaradan, he hesitated to leave those being taken into Babylonian exile, perhaps feeling that he should share their lot or desiring to serve their spiritual interests further. Jah 40. 5. At times in his long career Jeremiah became discouraged and required Jehovah's assurance, but even in adversity he did not forsake calling on Jehovah for help. Jah 20. Associations. Through all of his more than 40 years of prophetic service, Jeremiah was not abandoned. Jehovah was with him to deliver him from his enemies. Jah 1. 19 Jeremiah took delight in Jehovah's word. Jah 15. 16 He avoided association with those who had no consideration for God. Jah 15. 17 He found good associates among whom he could do building up work. Jah 1. 10, namely, the Rechabites, Ebmelech, and Baruch. Through these friends he was assisted and delivered from death, and more than once Jehovah's power was manifested in protecting him. Jah 26. 7-24. 35. 1-19. 36. 19-26. 38. 7-13. 39. 11-14. 40. 1-5. Dramatic illustrations. Jeremiah performed several small dramas as symbols to Jerusalem of her condition and the calamity to come to her. There was his visit to the house of the potter. 18. 1-11, and the incident of the ruined belt. Jah 13. 1-11 Jeremiah was commanded not to marry. This served o text to acute miritra longo. Jeremiah, book of 32 days of Jesus' young childhood. Mount 2. 17, 18. Jah 31. 15 The Apostle Paul spoke of the prophets, among whom was Jeremiah, from whose writings he quoted, at Hebrews 8. 8-12. Jah 31. 31-34 Of these men, the same writer said, the world was not worthy of them, and they had witness borne to them through their faith. Heb 11. 32, 38, 39. 7. Son of Habaziah and father of Yaazaniah, the latter being a leader of the Rechabites, whose integrity the prophet Jeremiah tested by offering them wine, which they refused. Jah 35. 1-10, 19. 8. A priest or one representing the priestly house of that name who returned from Babylonian exile in 537 BCE with governor Zerubbabel and high priest Jeshua. Ne 12. 1. 9. A priest or one representing a household by that name among those attesting by seal the trustworthy arrangement entered into before Jehovah by Nehemiah and the princes, priests, and Levites, to walk in God's law. If the name stands for a house rather than an individual, this may be the same as no. 8. Ne 9. 38. 10. 1, 2, 29. 10. One appointed by Nehemiah to walk in a procession upon the rebuilt wall of Jerusalem at its inauguration. This may be the same as the priest named at Nehemiah 10. 2. They followed the choir that proceeded past the gate of the sheeps to the right, toward the water gate, eventually meeting the other choir at the temple. Ne 12. 31-37 In the days of Joachim, Hananiah was head of the paternal house of Jeremiah. Ne 12. 12 If the name Jeremiah here stands for a house and not for an individual, this may be the same as no. 8. Jeremiah, Book of Prophecies and a historical record written by Jeremiah at the direction of Jehovah. Jeremiah was commissioned as prophet in the 13th year of King Josiah 647 BCE to warn the southern kingdom, Judah, of her impending destruction. It was less than a century after the prophet Isaiah's activity and the fall of Israel, the northern kingdom, to the Assyrians. Arrangement. The book is not arranged chronologically, but, rather, according to subject matter. Dating is presented where necessary, but the majority of the prophecies are applicable to the nation of Judah throughout the general period of the reigns of Josiah, Joahaz, Joachim, Joachim, and Zedekiah. God repeatedly told Jeremiah that the nation was incorrigibly wicked, beyond reform. Yet those with right hearts were given full opportunity to reform and find deliverance. As to being prophetic for our day, the arrangement does not affect the understanding and application of Jeremiah's writings.